Thanks for wanting to come into my session. I'm happy to see if I can share some of my experience that can benefit you all. I write my music here in this home office. Welcome to my office. This is where all the magic happens, even with my boxes of Cougar Natural paper behind me. This keyboard is hooked up to my computer. On the other side is a big printer. But that side of the room is pretty messy, so I won't show that side of the room. I'm in Bloomington, Indiana. I'd love to know where you all are coming from. I can see names and I can see, your description of composer. And oh my goodness, I recognize several of you. This is so cool. So good to see you guys here. Thanks. But if you'll just throw in the comment, where are you from? All right. We got people from all over. This is great. Yeah. Okay, cool. And just based on the several of you that I know personally, I know that we're at very different stages of life, some of us. But I hope what I say today can be applicable for everybody, can help everybody. I think the only reason I qualify to give this is that I have a big family and I'm supporting that family with my music. In fact, here, let me start by showing you a nice little recent photo of my family. So yeah, we have 6 children and there's one more on the way. We're excited to announce we have a little baby in the oven. So that'll be 7 children. So how in the world am I supporting 7 children writing music? And my wife doesn't work outside of the home. And we have no debt, no student debt. Our cars are paid off. Our house is even paid off just as of last year. We paid off our house. So how am I doing this? This talk gave me a great opportunity to kind of go into my own, accounting records and see like, okay, well, what are the sources of income and what are their percentages? And so I'm happy to share that with you. So I went through and I looked at each way that I make money for this family. And here they are. So it's primarily writing music. And we're going to talk about the difference between direct and consortium commissions. So that's about 50%. I sell my music because I self-publish my music. And that brings in about 20% of my income. I teach. I have private students. I teach composition too, as well as a couple local students here in Bloomington, Indiana that I teach. I have a couple trumpet students and even a guitar student. So those teaching endeavors, private teaching, JCA stands for Jacobs Composition Academy, which I'm the program director of. MCA stands for Music Creators Academy, which is an online summer music program. And I also do, on a pretty regular basis, I'm zooming into clinicking wind bands, middle school and high school level bands. So that's that 15% chunk. And then performing, I lead a New Orleans Dixieland band. And we also perform pretty often as a family for local retirement homes. And then I also perform as a soloist for some local retirement homes. And then the remaining categories are small, but I wanted to list them here because sometimes they spike. So for example, the ASCAP performance royalties, and I have an orchestra piece performed, boom, suddenly it's a big spike that year. But otherwise those performance royalties are, in the hundreds of dollars. They're not huge. Engraving music, which means doing copy work I used to do this for a publisher, now a publishing company. They weren't publishing my music, but I was being hired to engrave. now I only have one client, a composer that I do her great engraving work, and it's very infrequent. I do a little bit of arranging work. I currently lead some bucket drumming groups here in town. Love that stuff, but it's mainly service. It doesn't pay a ton. I sing with a barbershop quartet, and we occasionally have gigs, especially around Valentine's Day, singing barbershop music for singing Valentines. And I've authored an ebook. So those are some of a little breakdown for you of how I'm making my music. So no, I do not have a big inheritance. I don't do real estate on the side. My wife is not a lawyer or something that's making a ton of money supporting my composing career. This is what it really is. Okay, good. So we're okay. I noticed in the comments, but looks good there. So I'm going to share with you what has worked for me, what I tried that didn't really work well, and I'm going to bust a couple myths that I came into this profession thinking were true that have turned out not to be true. And of course, in about 30 minutes, I'll go into some Q&A, maybe just for a few minutes here, but then mainly over in the VIP session. So that's what we'll look at together. I'll do a couple story time segments. Here's the first one. As a student at Bowling Green State University in Ohio, I can remember sitting in a master class with Jennifer Higdon, and the big point of her entire master class that hour was say yes to everything. And I took that to heart. So I have a couple experiences from that to share with you. And I pass on the same message of say yes to every project, make it work with whatever budget they have, whatever time frame they have, see what you can do to make it work. So here's the story. I was playing trumpet in the touring jazz band at Brigham Young University, and our rehearsals were on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And Tuesday after rehearsal, the director came up to me and said, "Hey, Ben, I know you do a little bit of composing and writing. Would you be willing to write a tune for us to take on our next tour?" Because we had an upcoming tour to Scotland. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that sounds amazing to have my music performed in Scotland. And I had written several charts for big band. And he said, okay, well, great. And he was not a composer. And he said, well, can you have it ready for our rehearsal Thursday? And this is Tuesday. And I very naively, and I said, yes. Well, not naively. I knew it was going to be crazy, but I said yes. And I basically skipped all my classes Wednesday, barely slept Tuesday night and Wednesday night. And somehow I finished a piece. It's called High Road. You can find it on my website. It's a great chart. And yes, it does loosely take the melody from, "Oh, you take the high road and I'll take the low road," that little Scottish Loch Lomond thing. And it didn't pay any money. Actually, I take that back. Maybe he did end up finding a little grant and paying me a couple $100 or something. I don't remember exactly. However, it did mean that my music got played all over Scotland and England, because that was that tour. And of course, that band has continued to play that chart a lot, and lots of other jazz big bands have picked up that chart because it's fun. It's a fun piece. And it really pushed me to write fast and write, something that that I thought would be really accessible, to an audience over there. So there's one story. Definitely, a lot of success has come to that piece, and projects have come to me because of that piece. Another one, While at Bowling Green State University, again, as a student, I was approached by the oboe professor, Jackie LeClaire, and I was super intimidated by her. I'd never talked to her directly. She was in Alarm Will Sound and just really big name. And anyway, she comes up to me, and apparently she had heard of me somehow. And she said, "Would you be interested in writing an oboe quartet for us to play at the next International Double Reed Society conference?" I'd never heard of oboe quartets. What? 4 oboes? Like, ugh, like is what I thought right away. But of course I didn't say any of that. I said, yeah, sure. Okay. And so of course I had to learn all about, oboe quartet. Oh, it's like English horn and oboe d'amore. And what are those? And I knew what English horn was, but, and I, let me see, what are these comments? Okay, good. And so and again, it was a situation where I think she gave me like a week, and I wrote this piece just super fast, and then it turned out to do great. I mean, they played it at an International Double Reed Society conference, and so that instantly, I probably sold 50 or 60 copies. Sales have definitely trickled off since then of that piece, but that was one of the first pieces that, I sold a whole bunch of music right away as a self-publishing composer, and started to learn about distribution. And that was important too from that piece, that, some double reed publishers wanted to pick up my music and distribute it. And so how does that work? And what kind of percentages are typical? And, really helped me get into that area. So unpause story time. Say yes to everything that comes your way. Another, I hope will be a takeaway message for you from my conversation today is that I think of planting seeds, because if you're wanting to go places in your career, it's all about planting a ton of seeds. Some are going to sprout, a lot aren't, and that's okay. But I have to be willing to invest and plant the seeds. So what I do, let me share this again with you. Here are a couple of my planting seeds key phrases. I would be honored to write you a piece. I use that one all the time. Anytime I'm talking to a talented performer, but especially like right after their recital or a concert, I go up to the conductor, man, your group sounds awesome. Like, you guys are killing it, whether I know the conductor or not. Okay. I'm going to talk to this person or the sax quartet or the piano trio, whatever I just listened to, and show my support. You guys sound great. You sound so good. And I'd be honored to write you a piece. Have you ever commissioned a new piece for your ensemble? And those just little tiny seeds sometimes sprout into commissions, sometimes sprout, sometimes they don't. And that's fine. But okay, there we go. They've been huge for me of making commissions happen and offering from my angle. Okay, so what's working and what worked for me and what didn't? Let's jump into a couple of those. And by the way, this entire page you're looking at is on my website. You can easily get to it by just clicking on my presentation, and you'll get these notes. So you can go there right now if you want to. So don't feel like you have to copy all that down. So what worked for me? So consortium commissions, and we need to pause here. So what is a consortium commission? It just means that it's a bunch of people coming together to commission a piece of music or a bunch of ensembles. I have done this from everything from wind band is my primary source of commissions, consortium commissions, and that style or that instrumentation, conductors are really used to joining consortium commissions. There's a lot of music being written like that in the wind band world. However, I also do it with saxophone quartets and saxophone solos and fixed media. And in fact, one of the very first consortium commissions I did, here, let me show you this because I thought this was fun. It's called Can You Crack It? It's a piece for trombone and electroacoustic sounds. I mean, this is super old. What is when did I write this? Yeah, see, I don't even have there's the Perusal score. Okay, wait. There it is, 2012. Yeah. So, yeah, when I was, this is old. So this is one of my first consortium commissions. How did I know these people? Well, I didn't. I knew Kevin. Kevin was a friend of mine, a colleague. I was doing my master's degree, and he was doing his master's or doctorate, I think, and a trombonist. He loved new music, and I can't remember, did I approach him and say I'd love to write him a piece, or whether he asked me. I think it's probably that I did my usual line of, I'd be honored to write you a piece, and he didn't have a lot of money, which is understandable as a student. And I said, well, hey, I've heard of these consortium commissions things. Let's try to do one. And then he reached out to his friends, that, some trombone players that he knew from other conferences and also just other degrees that he had received, right? Degree programs. And I think they each chipped in $25, maybe $50 at most. And so it wasn't a ton of money, right? But it did mean that I had a bunch of different trombone players now playing that piece, and getting to know my music, right? And so that piece has done reasonably well. I mean, it's sold a bunch of copies over the years. And of course, I collaborated directly with Kevin on, what do we want to do? And I told him my idea about this code. And anyway, you can read about the piece on the website if you want. But that was kind of my start in consortium commissions, and it went well, and it was easy. I just set up a PayPal page on my website where people could just say, hey, I want to join the consortium. Here's the link. And I can just send them the link. And back then I did a contract like between everybody that was joining the consortium. Nowadays, I don't. I only do a contract with the head of the consortium, and then say on the page, hey, if you're joining this, you are just by paying your money, you're agreeing to perform the piece, essentially, to take part in the consortium. What else do I want to say about consortiums? Nowadays, because I have so many different people playing my music, and my network has grown much larger, I am able to help find people to fill the consortium. Back when I was a student, and I didn't hardly know anybody, and even just early in my career, I was always pretty dependent on the head of the consortium to find like ensembles or like-minded people. So for example, I wrote a piece for sax quartet pretty early on too. And I didn't know a lot of sax quartets at that moment. But the head of the consortium, they knew a lot of sax quartets, and they were part of sax quartets Facebook groups and stuff. And so they put it out there as, hey, we want to commission this young composer. We think he'll write something interesting. The piece I wrote was called Digital Goldfish, and then that piece did really well. And so now, lots of saxophone players know my music, and all of that happened because, of the head consortium, who I did know directly, and was a colleague or a friend that I wanted to write a piece for. and then they helped bring in everybody else into the consortium. So, and while I'm on this consortium note, I don't do it as an elitist club. Some models that I've seen are, let's have it be really high ticket price, and only the first 10 people or will be a part of our consortium. I prefer to do it the other way, where let's keep the buy-in really low, and the more the merrier. Like, let's try to get a bunch of people on this consortium. And that's worked really well for me. I feel like that it's just created a better community around the piece. Everybody's excited as I'm sending them little updates and occasionally a little teaser, a little preview. And then as I'm, when I release the piece to the consortium members, there's always, just some really great creative energy happening around that. And would that happen with an elitist club mentality? Probably too, but I just personally prefer to, the more the merrier, and especially those programs, like if I'm writing a piece for middle school band, well, I want a program that's rural Virginia to be able to participate, even though their budget is nothing compared to, some program in Texas, for example. And should not have stereotyped programs based on their budgets and state. That's on the recording. Oh, well. Okay. So yeah, that's a little bit about consortium commissions. Oh, and here, I'll show you one more. Let's go here. Oh, I gotta share screen again. Okay, so let me show you one more piece. It's a wind band piece. It's probably my largest consortium commission, Technoblade. So this is for a middle school band, a concert band, an audio track, and really fun piece based on my hobby of knife throwing. And James Mobley, the consortium director, I met at Midwest Clinic. I mean, this is, how these things happen, right? Years ago, and we became friends, and he wanted to commission me. And look at this list of consortium members. I think there's 36, if I remember right, consortium members for Technoblade. No surprise, Technoblade is my best-selling band piece. I mean, I've sold like 500 copies of Technoblade. How in the world did I'm a little self-published composer? How did I get all those sales? Well, in large part because 36 bands were part of the premiere, right? They all were excited about this piece when I released it. They're all playing it. They're telling their friend, their band director friends and colleagues, like, hey, check out this really unique, cool piece, that this composer did for band and audio track. And so outside of my ability to broadcast the news about this piece, a lot of that marketing, I'm not a marketer, I'm not good at this stuff. They sold my piece. I mean, they talked about it. They performed it at conventions. It did get performed at Midwest, which helped. And so all of that because of consortium commission. I've written some really great music with direct commissions, meaning just one ensemble or one person commissioned the music. I wrote it for them. They played it. And then the piece has largely remained unplayed, right? That is, for me, is kind of a tragedy, right? That the piece didn't have much of a life. I mean, I got paid just fine to, the commission to write the piece, but because it was just a single entity, not very many people hear about it. It's hard to get the word out. Whereas a consortium commission, it's just infinitely greater exposure right away from the beginning. So almost everything I write is consortium commission. Nowadays, it's even I have have a project, something in mind that I want to do, and so I will go do it. And I will find the people that want to do it with me. This just happened. My most recent project, I'm almost done with, a little past the deadline, but I've sent updates to all the consortium members. It's called Metal Lizard Shift, and it's based on progressive metal, death metal. And anyway, it started as a euphonium and audio track piece. And then we thought, well, let's get the tuba players involved too, since tuba euphonium studios are usually together. And then we decided to open it up to all low winds. So, bass, clarinet, bassoon. And so we got a nice big consortium of students and professionals. We had the buy-in, the consortium buy-in at different levels, so that the students, I think it was $50, could buy in really cheap. But a professional, I think the buy-in was 150 or 200. And it worked out great, to get all these different instruments. Now, yes, I had to now write, essentially 4 transcriptions of the piece for these different instruments. And so that was a little more work on my end, but it's been great to bring together all these people that share an interest like I do in progressive metal and the crazy time signatures and just sick beats and grooves that are made by, Meshuggah and Periphery and these bands that I've always loved and always wanted to study more and take into my music. And now I had an opportunity to do so because I created it. I was like, hey, I want to do this piece. Who do I know that might be interested in this? And then I reached out to some friends with a little feeler of, I'm kind of interested in taking this on a project like this. Would you be interested in heading up a consortium? And as soon as I found somebody, John Caputo, that was interested, we ran with it. So, all right, boy, I hate one-sided conversations, and this feels one-sided since all I have to do is talk to you guys. Do I write differently for a consortium rather than a single entity? No, I'm usually just, I'm collaborating directly with the head of the consortium. So whether it's a saxophone quartet or a wind band or a percussion quartet, whatever, I'm collaborating with that head ensemble. And I mean, if something needs to be clarified with everybody, like, hey, do you all feel comfortable with this? Then I'll do that. But otherwise, no. I'm always collaborating directly with an ensemble, which again, in the case of the consortium, like the head ensemble, and receiving that input and that creative energy right there. And for me, that's really important to maintain that collaborative aspect and that energy throughout the composition process, because I don't know about you guys, but as a composer, I can easily feel like I don't know what to write for and I don't know what to do if I'm just sitting in my office all by myself with no connection to real people. So, great questions. Yeah, and here let's move on, and I'll share. Okay. So consortium commissions, they've worked. Lunch dates, taking out conductors and asking them questions. Yeah, I've done this throughout my career, but especially as a student, this was one of the big things that helped me. And what do I mean by taking out conductors? Well, anyone who leads an ensemble. So, here in Bloomington, Indiana, when I started my doctorate, there's tons of community groups and local professional groups making music. And so, I would go to the Bloomington Symphony Orchestra concert, or even look up their rehearsal and go to their rehearsal, and then be able to come up to the conductor afterwards and say, just introduce myself. Hey, I'm a local composer. You guys sound incredible. And then I drop one of my C's, right? I would be honored to write you a piece. Or, hey, have you ever commissioned any music? And usually along with, I'd love to take you out to lunch. Can we set up a time to chat? And sometimes I would do this via email, but often that I wouldn't get any response. Like when I was occasionally cold emailing directors that I'd never met, I don't think I ever got a single response, even when I was offering to take them out to lunch. No, they don't respond to that. But if right after a rehearsal, after they've clarified whatever they need to clarify with whoever, and they're kind of on their way out, if I go up and introduce myself and just keep it short, and yeah, I'd love to take you out to lunch. Yeah, most people don't turn down a free meal. So, yeah. And then I'm not, why am I going to take you out to lunch? Because I want to learn from you. Would you be willing to share your experience, how about your career and what's working for you, and about, if it's an orchestra director, then I want to hear about their perspective on writing for orchestra. What do they feel like, where's the direction of new orchestra music headed, and what are they most interested in? What songs, what pieces have they recently performed that they were really excited about? Those are the kind of questions I'm going to ask them during the lunch. And this goes for orchestra directors, but also and wind band directors, but also smaller groups, sax quartets, piano trios, whatever. Okay, another thing that has worked for me, I wrote email campaign based off of YouTube. So yeah, this needs a little story. So, occasionally I used to just try to cold email directors, wind band directors and orchestra directors, and, say, oh, hey, here's a piece of mine. I'd love for you to check it out. And that got like zero traction. And then one day I was literally on YouTube, and watching some performances from some conductors that I really looked up to. And I'm trying to remember how I first did it, but anyway, it evolved into, I would send an email to that conductor, because, I can find their email address if they're at an institution pretty quickly. I would email that director. I would say, hey, I was just on YouTube and I just watched this, whatever it was. I'm trying to remember when it first started. Maybe it was Jennifer Higdon, and I just watched your performance of whatever by Jennifer Higdon, and I got to study with her at Bowling Green State University. I think really highly of her. Here's a recent piece of mine. Maybe you'd like to check out. And that was it. And I'd send it off, and I did this with a bunch of conductors, right? And then I actually heard back from a couple. And so then I actually turned it into like an entire campaign process where I had an assistant, because I have an assistant who worked for me a couple hours a week, and I had him actually start to go mine performances from my friends. So, colleagues of mine. So for example, David Biedenbender, is a colleague of mine, Kate Nishimura, Joseph Soa, I would have him go find performances on YouTube of groups playing pieces by these friends of mine, and say what the piece was. And because we wanted it to be, I didn't want to lie, I would then go look at that list, make sure I had heard those performances. And if I hadn't, then I'd listen to a little bit of it. And then he would send a personalized email to that conductor with a template, though, that I came up with. But he would send an email as if it was me, in my voice from my email address, saying, hey, I just watched this piece, great performance. I think so much of Kate Nishimura's music. Here's the piece that I wrote recently that maybe enjoy listening to. Done. And it actually started to work. Like a bunch of people were responding and checking out my music. I did this especially with wind bands that had done something with video, because I have a wind band and video piece. So I looked up, all of the wind band and video pieces and then started finding people that had done those performances. And I don't know why, but it seems that with that intro line of, I was just watching this performance of yours on YouTube, bravo kind of thing, people actually read it and read my email instead of, my old cold emails where it used to just be like, hey, I'm a young composer. I love you and your ensemble. Anyway, it's not a huge difference, and yet it made a difference. So just for what that's worth, my experience there. Okay. I got to go faster. Back to the notes. Yes, I attended the Midwest Clinic, and I formed a composer collective called Blue Dot Collective. This was our 7th year, I think, 2022. That's been really huge to have like an umbrella that I'm now associated with really high quality composers that are in a similar station in life, similar age, and also similar, desires to write fresh music for wind band. That Midwest Clinic is specifically a wind band and orchestra to a lesser extent, mecca. And so that this would apply, for any convention, any major convention that is in an area that you want to write for or are already writing for. My next field of interest is choir music, choral music. I've only done a couple choir pieces. And so, my next clinic or convention, will be some of the choir conventions, just so I can start to get in that world and start to meet the people. And that's I have found that to be very effective to attend and exhibit at the Midwest Clinic. We already talked about saying yes to everything. I already gave you those stories. And the self-publishing, the fact that I self-publish my music and then, keep 100% of the sale price rather than a normal publishing contract, which is 11% if you're lucky, maybe 9% if not, which are both abysmal. And what has been important there is, for me, is to listen to what directors want. I talk to a lot of orchestra and wind band directors to find out, oh, they like off-white paper. Oh, they like, the comb binding to be a certain way. Oh, they like, nowadays, a lot of them like PDF orders. Great. Well, then I'm going to make sure I have my orchestra music, those pieces that are not rentals, available as PDFs, and of course, all my wind band music, they don't want to rent anything. So no problem. I'll sell it to you directly, and you want to buy it as a PDF? Great. No problem. So what didn't work for me? I'm not a social media guy. I mean, some of my colleagues do it so well. That is not the way I've grown my network and my business. My website, why I say it didn't work is that find myth number 1. People will find me when they're searching online for a composer to commission. That's what I thought my website was going to do. No, that's not what it does. It is a great CV or a resume, a great way for me to share my music and have my music available to purchase and show that I'm a professional composer. And it's a very important tool, but it didn't mean that it wasn't a marketing tool. Yeah, let's say it like that. And I used to send CDs back in the day. I used to mail out CDs and cold email people. Yeah, none of that ever worked well for me. Okay, so let's debunk a couple myths in our remaining minutes. So myth number one, people will find me when they're searching online for a composer to commission because I have a website. Yeah, I really thought that. I thought like people would Google like, I want to commission someone to write a piece for me. Who should I commission? And like they go on Google to try to find that. That's not the way it works at all. You know, my commissions come from me talking to people and friends of mine that have commissioned my music to talking with their friends and recommending me. That's how this whole thing has grown for me. Number two, I shouldn't use contracts with friends as that doesn't feel right since I should trust them already. No way. We want to be professional. And, you know, even if I had my buddy come over and like put on my roof or something, I would still want a contract in place. Like I want to know that he's got insurance and, you know, et cetera. Like, no, a contract is going to only strengthen your relationship and strengthen your professionalism. It's not going to hurt your friendship. And if it does, well, then you probably don't want to be dealing with that person in a professional way anyway. I always use commission contracts. I always use, you know, even performance contracts. So yes, definitely contracts. If I should just focus, myths. Oops, that shouldn't say if. I just focus on my craft and writing. Oh, no, it should say if. If I just focus on my craft and writing the best music I can, everything else will just fall into place. There's a little bit of truth in this. I do focus on my craft and writing the best music I can, but everything else will not just fall into place. No, I have to go out and plant the seeds. And we talked about that early on. See section 1 for planting seeds. Number 4, I should write for free or really cheap in order to get, you know, more clients. No, I'm the only person that can write music like Ben Taylor, and you're the only person that can write music like you. Therefore, I and you are extremely boutique niche composers, you know, as well as every other composer in the world. I mean, if you want a piece like Eric Whitacre, well, then commission Eric Whitacre, you know, like so because I am giving an extremely personal and individualized labor, effort, creative act, then no, I'm not going to cheapen it by lowering my prices, you know, such that I can't support myself and such that I diminish my work in that way. That's how we show value here in our society, is through money. And that's a whole nother topic of conversation, but yes, I'm, you know, I have rates and I'm going to stick with those rates. If you don't have the budget for it, well, no problem. Maybe I can write you a shorter piece, or maybe we can do a consortium commission. Hey, there we go. Right. So, okay. Myth number 5, in order to support my self-composing, I would have to be super famous like Eric Whitacre. Yeah. Fortunately, that's not true. I imagine a bunch of you have never heard of me, Benjamin Taylor. And yet here I am, and it's supporting, you know, my 6 kids and my wife writing music professionally. And so very clearly, you don't have to have like this international fame and reputation, or have, you know, John Carigliano, like, oh, you have to be him to make it. No. I hope this has been helpful to you. I have to jog over to the VIP room. Let's see. Yeah, so anyone that's there with me, anyone that is not, and you have questions for me, well, and even if you are and you don't get your question answered later, just shoot me an email. I hope you can see I'm a very personal guy, happy to answer your questions. My email's on my website, benjamintaylormusic.com. I am happy to help you any way I can, especially if you're a student and you have questions about, you know, how to start your career. I passionately care about you because I want to show that it's totally possible to do this without teaching full time at a university. So with that, thanks guys. And I'll jog over to the other room.